Welcome to the Improv Breakfast. We are Improv Inc. We support teams and individuals to connect, collaborate, and thrive using applied improvisation. And this, being the Improv Breakfast, is where we get to discuss this week's newsletter. So, what is the theme this week, Paul?
The theme this week is tell me more. Add a splash of colour to your talks. What do we mean by that? Well, this is all about zooming in and out of the detail of a talk so that you don't just stay at a high level, which is generic and a bit boring. It's not really offering enough insight. It's just all a bit vague. Also, you don't want to be in the detail the whole time because that's a bit nerdy and people are going, God, this is a bit tough, isn't it? It's going far too much into detail. So you want to kind of like go zoom in and out and zooming in and out, and that adds a splash of colour to your talks, breaks up the pattern.
Fantastic. And of course, we're looking at classical story tropes. This is, in a lot of ways, a hero's journey. You're going on that particular journey. What do you want people to go away with when you get to the end of the talk? Who are they going to meet along the way? What are they going to learn? And at what points is it more interesting for them to stay and have that detail filled out? And at what point do they want more action? Do they want to move on and whiz through the landscape? Rod, tell us, what do you like most about talks? Do you like all of the data and having that broad overview, or do you like doing little anecdotes, little story colored moments?
It depends. It would do. If it's a subject I know inside out, then I have a craving for minutiae and detail because I'm learning from the nuance of the detail. If it's something that I'm learning, it's new to me. I need it as much big picture framework as possible. So I'm looking for architecture, and I don't want it all. I want breaks in it as well because I need quite a bit of processing time because I'm processing while I'm listening.
That's a really good point. The processing while listening to yourself.
To myself, yeah, to myself, and on a really, really good presentation or training session or something, that bit where you find yourself maybe just sitting there quietly and not actually wanting to get up or something, your brain is doing a little bit of rewiring at that stage. You're feeling a little bit vulnerable. You don't want to go out and talk to somebody. It's interesting. It's a good sign, that.
You might have, if you're a speaker or you're doing a talk, you might have in the room both of those rods. You might have the rod who is new to this and needs to have the overview so they can kind of find out, well, where do I sit in this landscape? Where's the interesting bit for me? Is it interesting for me? And then you've got the other rods who's going, come on, get into the detail. I want to know more. And so this is the idea that you can, even on the overview, you could pick something in that overview and go, right, we're just going to take this one element and just go in a little deeper.
And there's what I call the academics problem, which is they fail to give context. How many academic papers, and people may have spent 2 or 3 years working on these things. You read the abstract. Well, the abstract's going to give me the context, isn't it? Well, no, not beyond this
necessarily
huge title it's got, perhaps. And you can go through the whole lot and you never learn the context. It's missing. And I really don't know sometimes whether the person writing it ever had that context. If it's a poor paper, from my experience, rather than academic viewpoint, then I think, perhaps they need a bit of real world experience and they never had the context.
Yeah, that's fair enough. There was a great quotation. You just reminded me that Paul put in a fantastic quotation. Mark Twain, obviously, he's brilliant at the aphorism, but
he's a friend of the show. Let's say it that way.
Friend of the show, indeed. But he said the difference between the almost right word and the right word is the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning. And I think that has something to do with context as well. I think that this is how important it can be to just make sure that you're serving your audience in a way that suits them best. And as you say, if there isn't the context, say for instance in an academic paper, and I love that you call it the academics problem, that can be a problem. That means that the audience is not getting the information that they need.
So I came up with this thought of this newsletter because we did a show, the Mudlarkers did a show the other week, an improv play, and it was The Fire of London. And as the players were on stage, where the orphans were introduced to the context, lots of orphans kicking around London in 1666. And orphan soup got mentioned. There can't be many plays where orphan soup's mentioned. And I was a director, so I wasn't in the play, but I was on the edge. And I froze the play and said, we need to know more about orphan soup. You can't just throw that in there as a high-level topic and leave the audience thinking, what the heck's orphan soup? And so they then went into a scene in an orphan soup kitchen, and you saw the mechanics behind orphan soup. And it kind of like wasn't important for the play, but it added a moment where the play could just drop into a detail that stood out in its own right, but didn't alter the wider narrative necessarily, but it gave a different lens to look at a piece of that play. And it became a magic moment in the play. And it made me think, this does happen in presentations. When it works well, it works really well if you can just pick one thing and then just go into it for a moment and then come back out again. Don't stay in there too long, because that becomes too kind of like you can then wander off too much. But just to go in and give a flavour and then come back out again.
Indeed, and we like to use the necklace analogy of having all these gems on a necklace. So you have this, what you might call a red thread running through it, and so of course you're always keeping to that. But then these beautiful little gemstones along the way, where you get to see that color, see that moment, a magic moment. But also, as Paul says, that you're not spending too long on it. It has to be time boxed, otherwise it becomes all about that, and suddenly you're following a different thread.
Yeah. And maybe this is a bit of an answer to the academic's problem. If the academic has set out here's the general thread of what I want to follow in my talk, which gem on that thread am I going to pick out? Can't pick them all out, it's too many. But which one should I pick out and choose to enlighten the audience with?
Definitely. Is this a good moment for an activity, Paul? What do you think?
I think it's perfect. Yeah, we do have an activity. It's called Color or Move On.
Awesome.
Explain.
I mean, I can do. Yes, indeed. This is a wonderful activity. I would say it's a timeless activity from the school of Keith Johnston, improv wise, but which has been used to great effect in different corporate settings and academic settings by Kat Coppett, brilliant applied improviser in the States. And what it requires is just a couple of people who will then have one narrator, give that narrator a subject, and then the other person will either say color or move on. And
it's that simple.
It's that simple. Yes. So, Rod, are you up for it? Excellent, excellent. All right. So let's find Paul, you're going to be the color and move on person, obviously. Okay. And I'm going to give you, Rod, the subject of a time when you had to move house. Does that feel appropriate? Have you ever moved house?
I'm about to move somebody's house this weekend.
That's amazing. He's an expert. Talk about something that's already happened, if you don't mind, and then and keep the sentences short. And then that gives Paul an opportunity to either say move on, and you're going to advance the story,
continue with it, yeah,
or color, which means you sit where you are and you flesh out the details of the thing that you're talking about in that present moment. Awesome. Feel free to go ahead and start your story.
So, think of the person I'm thinking of, actually my daughter, who recently finished university. So I was in that moving house for her once a year, and and all parents will know that there's that trip down, loading up a car. Perhaps all the goods come back home and then they go back down again. So you get a double move. If you're lucky, you'll get a move across town. But strangely, the amount that you take down seems to double by the time that you bring it up in the most extraordinary way.
Color. Tell us more about the stuff.
The stuff. Well, I'm thinking particularly when she was living in Hackney in Stoke Newington, and she went into a place that didn't have very much in the way of furniture, not a mirror or anything like that. But London being London, and having a lot less people drive, and people just put things out on the street, like good things out on the street, very good things. And she'd managed to pick up all manner of things. Little bedside cabinets.
Yes, colour. Examples.
A huge white framed mirror that was taller than she was and bigger than the car. So that one stayed, didn't it? There was another TV cabinet, like a table, a magnificent carved affair. Goodness knows where this had come from.
It's like an Antiques Roadshow. Let's move on.
It was. So it was a bit of negotiation. We decided most of this stuff had to leave. Fortunately, this time it was just down the road, and we had to move a lot because she was moving onto a barge.
Oh, colour.
No, this is so in London you've got the Regent's Canal that runs hidden behind the houses between Marylebone and King's Cross, and there are basins on this canal. So this is where old warehouses would have surrounded, but now they're little communities of brightly coloured barges, and you get such a fascinating group of people live on these barges.
Yeah, colour. I want to know.
They tend to be artists. They tend to be people who have a more bohemian, unstructured life, and it takes place in a very, very tight confines. But their creativity really comes into it. If you want to cook and enjoy cooking, you have to devise your space. So miraculously, you've got the table and prep areas can appear and disappear, and you learn how to do everything in just one pan and
Great. Let's move on. Let's move on. We'll go another 20 seconds. Let's move on.
Now, what I've absolutely found key to moving is to make sure you've got some breaks organised and planned in advance. So you don't just dash and dash and dash because you end up exhausted. So you need to find a nice place for coffee.
And I think we'll call it there. Nice. That's great. You've left us with some great piece of advice. Well done.
Congratulations. Excellent. Rod, how did that feel? To be controlled by the puppet master Paul?
Oh, that was quite nice, actually. It was just switching to a different bit of my brain to think. So I had to use quite a bit of visualization that was really helping me. So I was visualizing what I was speaking about, but there were actually very different bits of visual. I'm just thinking here. So to go into the color, the detail, I had to hold a strong picture.
Yeah. And then you gave us that picture
and begin to examine that picture and talk about the picture. And there was a place where I lost the picture when I was talking about the furniture that had been collected, and it was fragmenting. So that was hard. Whereas the moving on bit, that was actually, I'd call that an emotional visualization. So I was remembering a feeling and talking about the feeling, and then letting the pictures come to me.
How did you see it, Vic, as an observer? Direction.
I really enjoyed it. And I feel like it's always so clear when you're outside of the story as to when it does need to move on, when we need more action, and when we do want to just stay in the description and enjoy the idiosyncrasies of whatever unique thing is happening in that moment.
Yes.
And that there's a real relief. You talked about it being quite relaxing, Rod, and I think that's very true. There's a relief to not having to make those decisions in the moment, because we say in improv, quite often before going on to do a show, how may I delight you, to your team members? How may I delight you? And so knowing that the power is in the listener's hands, in the other person's hands, that means that you don't have any pressure to delight them because they get to choose how you're delighting them in that moment. And it can be really useful.
And there's another thing that we talk about in improv as well, and that is specificity. So giving something the audience can be pleased about, and then being specific about that. So when, for example, Rod, when you were talking about the collection of things that your daughter has over the years, is like, what things? Be specific, and then it starts to come out. There's an old mirror that's too big, and you made even a little joke about it. Well, that's not coming because it can't fit in the car, and there were a couple of other items. And then when we went onto the barge, obviously that's colourful. I want to know about Barge World. And then you painted a beautiful picture, not just of the community and how the people within that community interact and live together, and that is. That just brought that whole part of the story to a different kind of life. You added some specific things in there about you got into cooking and one-pan cooking and things like this, and it's those little examples just made the story completely different to something that we all know about, which is moving home.
That's it. And I think personalized it precisely. And so when one is constructing a talk, you can have this red thread, the through line, and then you can, in a very aware way, decide where on that thread those gems are going to go, those beautiful little nuggets of extra information, the color of it all, knowing as you do that they have to be time boxed. You don't want to make them into a big meal. It has to be a little beautiful little touch of information, and then it becomes more easy to make decisions about what you're going to say, I think.
Rod, do you have some last thoughts?
I was just going to ask a question, Paul.
Yeah.
As somebody who's both done quite a lot of public speaking and presentations, which are sort of semi-public, how much do you plan in the detail and the color, and how much do you hold that, and then you're sort of taking your cue from the audience or who you're presenting to decide, that's where I do it. Now I'm going to stop doing it and move on.
I suppose sometimes it might be that a lot of the color might come in a Q&A, but then you are kind of like relying on the room to give you those prompts with their questions. A tactic that I use when I'm at the Speakers Academy, so this week actually coaching business owners, a tactic we use is to give an overview of their topic. They give an overview of their topic, but then they go into small little anecdotes for some elements. And so an anecdote example in your story would have been about the cooking that's going on in that barge community. That's kind of like a little anecdote, or the collection of items that I then called like, it's like an antiques roadshow, this literally, because you're gathering all this old stuff and you're moving it. These little things are tiny little anecdotes, and so you can put an anecdote in anywhere. Often, I'm stretching my answer now a bit. I think of metaphors or similes they themselves can help form the structure of a tiny little anecdote, just to give a twist of flavour on your talk. That was me trying to pepper.
I think that Paul's point about being able to almost give your anecdote or your gemstone on your necklace a title is a way to discover or to cement what's important about it. And that way you can also hang on to that as you're giving the talk, presentation, the speech. And it's a great idea to practice beforehand in front of someone or another and see what they say about each one, see what sticks, because there's nothing like going in front of someone and doing it to discover what counts, what's important, what matters.
Yeah.
Cool.
And also, if you're doing that and if you're recording yourself doing it, you can measure how long have I been just talking about thread, and I've not found a gem, which is generally another way for saying how long am I just waffling, and not thrown a gem in there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rod.
Well, something's occurring to me, having listened to hundreds and hundreds of presentations over decades, that when people talk about people in the anecdotes and the interactions of people, particularly if they're part of that actually really is sticky and it engages the audience.
Yeah. And
it's remarkable how many people leave that out completely. Yeah. So most presentations probably, revolve around people, if you start scraping away and asking it, and that bit's missed out. And often people are talking from having a lot of skin in the game and talking about their battle wounds of having got things done. It's the anecdotes they build around that really, really work. And I've got a whole bunch that come to mind.
Love that. Thank you. Thanks, Rod. Mark Twain was talking about the difference between lightning bugs and lightning. You are the lightning rod today. Thank you very much.
Come on.
Thank you. So, this has been the Improv Breakfast. We'd love a group photo. Are you up for it?
Yeah.
Rod's rolling his eyes. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. There we go. That's a nice group photo. Next week.
Yep.
How to begin your presentation with a bang.
Yeah, because you want to give your audience a strong reason to stay tuned in. And Rob, thank you for tuning in this week, and maybe we'll see you again in the future. Well, we will. Sure.
Thanks, Rod. Take care. See you soon.
Cheerio.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.